Everybody's running. Suge is coming. Suge came. He had some Mexican. Now we from New York. You ain't never seen a with a tattoo on his forehead. 118th Street Crew. I'm like, what the f.
It was January 2003. 50 Cent had just signed with Shady and Aftermath, and the whole crew was locked in for the Inda Club video shoot. Dr. Dre, Eminem, G-Unit, all together on set, filming the Inda Club video. Everything was calm until Suge Knight pulled up. He didn't walk in yelling. He didn't bring death row artists or industry execs. He brought something else.
You were in the club video shoot.
Right.
Were you there when Suge Knight showed up with the crew of Mexicans?
Yeah, and I was there with the homies.
The people who came with Suge weren't regular. They weren't in the video. They weren't part of the production. They just stood there, watching, waiting. Nobody knew what was about to happen, but everybody felt it. Because in LA, when Suge Knight shows up uninvited, you pay attention.
Suge Knight's a smart guy. He knows he brings essays, or obviously essays put in work. So if you don't know, the essays in Southern California got it on lock. It's the essays all day. Ain't no faction solider than the homies, you know? That's just facts.
Back then, nobody was talking about check-ins on Instagram. But behind the scenes, it was real. And what happened that day on set had everything to do with that game. A quiet war over respect, presence, and control in LA.
Suge. He liked the cigar and he trying to see what you gonna do. I seen this when I knew Eminem was real. He's like, I don't give a f, man.
What was Suge really doing there? Why did he bring those specific men with him? And how did Eminem, of all people, end up walking straight into that storm? To understand what went down that night, you've got to understand the rules Suge Knight played by and how the check-in game really worked. Check in. See, on the surface, it sounds like a formality, but in cities like Los Angeles, it was way more than that. When a rapper came to LA, especially a big one, local gangs expected to be informed, not out of curiosity, out of power. If you didn't check in, you were basically saying, I move how I want, and I don't need your permission. And that was disrespect. Checking in generally means if someone travels to a city, they should get in touch with a local gang or major street figure to guide and protect them during their stay. In return, the gang figure can receive anything from money, to a feature for one of their local music artists, to business connections. But Suge Knight, he didn't just want you to check in. He wanted you to check in with him personally. If you were a rapper who didn't grow up in LA, Suge expected you to tap in. And if you didn't, he had ways of making sure you understood who really ran things.
We run LA, we need to let everybody know that they come to LA, they're gonna with us. I'm Suge Knight, you're Capone-E, we could take over.
And this wasn't random. This wasn't a gang leader bluffing on some YouTube comment section. This was Suge Knight, the man behind Death Row Records. The same guy who made sure Pac walked into the East Coast like he owned it. And now, post-Death Row collapse, Suge was still trying to maintain dominance. Only difference? He wasn't always bringing Bloods anymore. He started showing up with Mexican goons, specifically 18th Street gang members, ESCs who didn't play industry games. These weren't wannabes. These were certified street soldiers, men who had done time, who had a reputation.
Suge Knight's a smart guy. He knows he brings essays, or obviously essays put in work. So if you don't know, the essays in Southern California got it on lock. It's the essays all day. Ain't no faction solider than the homies, you know? That's just facts.
That's why when Suge pulled up to the Inda Club video set in 2003, it was a message. He didn't need to say anything. The people he brought with him said it all. And this is where people get it twisted. Those 18th Street guys, they weren't mad at Eminem. They weren't there because they had some issue with 50 or Dre. In fact, some of them didn't even know who was who. What mattered was the code. If Suge had said, move, they would have moved. Hard.
They probably won't even told them what they're here for. It was just a front, it was an image, seeing the homies with tacos on their face. And just to any outsiders out there, just because homies got tacos on their face doesn't mean they're bona fide killers, you know what I'm saying? But they're representing the water. If it's on their face, they're representing that.
That was the game Suge played. Walk in slow, light a cigar, let everyone wonder what's about to happen. You move first, he reacts, you flinch, he wins. And on that day, Eminem didn't flinch. But make no mistake, this wasn't a fake story. This wasn't just rap politics. This was how power moved in LA. And behind all of it was Suge Knight.
I don't know why he wanted to get at 50. I don't know why he wanted to get at all of them. You know, maybe he wanted to show a little intimidation on the side. like he could be throwing them at them, get them intimidated, and he could have like some riders from the other side come through. Who knows how he's playing it? Obviously, the game is to be sold, not to be told.
That's the part most people miss. It wasn't about checking Eminem. It was about checking the entire idea of outside rappers. About reminding folks, this is LA, and if you didn't check in with Suge, you were automatically playing with fire. And back then, a lot of rappers learned that the hard way. By the time the Inda Club incident happened, it wasn't just Eminem Suge was watching. He had already been testing the waters, sending people into studios, pulling up on artists, and flexing that old death row intimidation. And one of those moments, Lil Wayne. It didn't get the same headlines, but for people in the streets, it sent a clear message.
Go down to a Hotel Beverly, I think it's a Beverly Hotel or something. He's sitting there chopping it up, pumping us up, you know what I'm saying? Like, you guys are the streets. When I came in, I bring out Pac, all that. That was that time. But the game has changed. You guys are the real out here putting in work.
Suge didn't hide the play. He straight up told Capone-E what the plan was.
He's like, check us out. We run LA. We need to let everybody know that they come to LA, they're gonna with us. I'm Suge Knight, you're Capone-E, we can take over.
That was the setup. Then came the mission.
So then he gets a phone call or something, like something about Lil Wayne's in the studio in Hollywood somewhere. So we're with my boys and he goes, look, Lil Wayne's out here. Lil Wayne's in our territory. And
Capone-E and his boys didn't ask questions. Suge said go. They went.
So we go to the studio, we roll up. So Suge Knight gets out of the car, he goes, look, here's my plan. You guys go push up in the studio. You go knock on the door and start saying you want to talk to Lil Wayne and say Suge Knight's outside. He wants to talk to.
They knocked. Security came out.
They know what's cracking. We're like, we know what to do, you know? So we go to the door, start knocking. Security comes out like, what's cracking? We need to see Lil Wayne. Suge Knight's outside. What's up, homies? They're looking at us like, what the f? These fools are tripping, you know?
Wayne's security was tight, but Suge's crew was firm. There wasn't any yelling, no violence, but the presence, it was loud.
We're outside waiting, we're looking at security, security's looking at us. Like, you know, we're just like, you know, looks like tension could pop off, we're ready to pop it off if something goes on.
After a few minutes, Suge walked in solo, told Capone and his guys to wait outside. Then he came back.
He's like, just chop it up tomorrow. He gets in the car, takes off. We're like, what did we just do?
Capone-E knew it right there. They weren't there to promote music. They weren't really there to talk. They were pawns, muscle, a front. And Suge had just used them to send a message, not just to Wayne, to the whole industry. You came to LA, you better come correct. You better check in. And if you didn't, Suge had people to remind you. Anyway, now things were heating up. Because if Eminem didn't move how Suge wanted, the next chapter was already written. Word had already spread. Suge Knight had walked onto the Inda Club set with S's from 18th Street. No one said a word. They didn't have to. Just standing there was enough. But then it happened. The kind of moment you don't forget. Eminem came outside. Not by accident, not escorted. He walked out on his own, calm.
Everybody's friend of Suge is coming! Suge came, he had some Mexican niggas. Now, we from New York. You ain't never seen with a tattoo on his forehead. 118th Street crew. I'm like,
They weren't ready for what M did next.
he came outside.
He came outside. He was ready to take.
I was bugging because I seen this.
At that point, it didn't matter if he was white, didn't matter if he was from Detroit. Eminem showed up like he had nothing to prove, but wasn't scared of anyone in that parking lot.
Suge. He liked the cigar and he was trying to see what you gonna do. I seen this is when I knew Eminem was real. He's like, I don't give a man.
That's when it hit people. This wasn't a rapper hiding behind security. He was right there, standing his ground, face to face with the kind of tension that could have gone sideways real fast. Even those who were on the scene saw it in real time.
This is when I knew, I'm like, damn, Eminem is a real.
But it wasn't just about standing outside. It was the way M moved, like he'd been here before. Quiet, focused, carrying a strap under that white tee. Not looking for problems, but not backing down from them either.
M's not a gangster rapper, man. Like, M is non-confrontational. He ain't walking around with a strap ready to up it and just pop. But he from Detroit. He from Detroit, man. He's from 8 Mile, bro.
Remember, them Detroit kind of crazy, bro.
And it's true. Nobody expected that kind of confidence, especially not from someone the industry had always painted as just a lyrical genius. But now, they were looking at Eminem differently. Not because he was loud, not because he threatened anybody, but because when Suge Knight showed up trying to shake the room, Eminem didn't blink.
50 niggas outside, what's up? And then the nigga Suge just walked away. The came outside. Eminem came outside 100%.
And that was the breaking point. Not a fight, not a shootout. Just one man showing Suge Knight he wouldn't fold, even with killers standing just a few feet away. The match didn't get lit, but for a split second, the whole industry held its breath. And the reason nothing happened next was all on Suge. Now let's talk about why Suge turned around and what that silence actually meant. By the time Suge pulled that stunt on Eminem, the streets already had a long list of rappers who learned the hard way what not checking in could lead to. Because when Suge Knight or any street-connected figure in LA expected you to check in, and you didn't, you were playing with your life. Let's start with Busy Bone from Bone Thugs and Harmony. In 2009, Busy had been staying at the Universal City Hilton when two women approached him at a bar nearby. They hung out, went back to his room, and while everything seemed cool at first, one of the women kept stepping outside to make calls. About 45 minutes later, a group of men burst into Busy's hotel room. They choked him, beat him, and robbed him of $35,000 worth of jewelry before fleeing the scene. Later, it turned out the suspects were Grape Street Crips, and some were tied to gang intervention programs on the side. Busy didn't check in, and the setup was smooth. But it wasn't just LA. Over in Detroit, there's a reason why Trick Trick has a reputation that stretches across the country. If you were a rapper coming into Detroit and didn't pay your respects, you didn't get to move freely. Period. Styles P, Trick Daddy, even Rick Ross found that out. In 2014, Ross was supposed to perform in Detroit but was denied entry into the venue. Why? Because he violated Trick Trick's no-fly zone. A rule that essentially said, you don't support local artists, you don't perform here. Rappers got chased out, blocked at gates, and surrounded by 100 deep crowds. It wasn't subtle. And it wasn't just Detroit. Back in LA, Pop Smoke came through in 2020 riding high off his Welcome to the Party fame. He was staying in the Hollywood Hills enjoying his run, but he never fully checked in. That same night, a crew ran up in his Airbnb, armed, masked, and ready. Pop tried to fight back, but he got shot once in the chest, then twice more in the back as he ran out the room. He collapsed at the bottom of the stairs and died later at the hospital. He was only 20 years old. People said it was a robbery. Others said it was a setup, but everyone agreed. Checking in could have changed the outcome. Then there was PNB Rock. He had ties to LA gangs. He even checked in with Grape Street Crips. But in 2022, he pulled up to a Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles in South Central, a spot deep in Crip territory, without protection. A man stormed into the restaurant in broad daylight, shot PNB in the chest, then shot him 2 more times in the back. While his girl held him, the shooter stripped him of his jewelry and ran off. PNB died right there. He had ties. He still got hit. Even when you checked in, it didn't always guarantee your safety. But when you didn't, you were a walking target. That's why what Eminem did stood out. Because everyone had already seen what happened to other rappers who played tough in the wrong city. M didn't check in, but he didn't run either. And that's what made Suge pause. Because if Suge had decided to light the match, the ending might have looked like one of these stories. But what came next? That changed everything. Because in the days that followed, the story started to spread. People who were there started talking, and people who weren't started listening. Word got out. Eminem didn't flinch.
This is when I knew, I'm like, damn, Eminem is a real.
For a white rapper from Detroit, standing toe-to-toe with 18th Street gangsters was unheard of. But that was the thing. M never tried to be something he wasn't. He didn't put on a front. He didn't scream. He just showed up. And in the streets, that counts. He didn't come alone either. Behind the scenes, M had built real relationships with people who were ready to ride. From 50 Cent to Proof to certain Samoan muscle in the background, if anything went down, it wasn't going to be one-sided. This wasn't just a good PR moment. It became part of his street mythos. M wasn't known for throwing fists. He was known for bars. But now, people respected the fact that when things got serious, he didn't run. Even The Game, who had been around the grimiest parts of the West, said it outright.
M's not a gangster rapper, man. Like, M is non-confrontational. He ain't walking around with a strap ready to up it and just pop. But he's from Detroit. He's from Detroit, man. He's from 8 Mile, bro.
Remember, them Detroit kind of crazy, bro. 8 Mile always been crazy.
That's what most people didn't understand. Eminem came from a city where people don't bluff. 8 Mile might have been made famous by a movie, but in real life, it was raw, it was hungry, and it raised a different kind of fighter. This wasn't a game of who could talk the loudest. It was a test, and that day, Eminem passed.
Suge Knight's a smart guy. He knows he brings essays, or obviously essays put in work. So Eminem came out and the homies were all confused. A, probably a little side of the confusion, and B, they probably weren't even told of what they're here for.
What Suge did that day might have looked like a power move, but the fact he left without pressing it, that spoke volumes. Because Suge wasn't scared of Eminem, and the S's weren't either. What they were was calculated. They moved on orders. And when Suge didn't pull the trigger, they didn't either. And just like that, the story was set. Eminem didn't check in, he didn't cave, and he earned something more valuable than fear, respect. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.